It's funny. If you watch like a brilliantly talented actor play a heart surgeon on TV for long enough, say 5 seasons of reciting medical jargon perfectly with total confidence,
Right.
you might actually catch yourself wanting to ask them for medical advice.
Right, because they look the part. I mean, they sound the part entirely.
Exactly. But hand them an actual scalpel, and the illusion just shatters immediately. The performance ends exactly where reality begins.
It's pure mimicry. Yeah.
It is. And, well, welcome to today's deep dive. Because as we sit here in May of 2026, that is a perfect metaphor for where we stand with artificial intelligence. We are interacting with these machines that give an incredible performance of being a genius. But the entire industry is currently racing toward the scalpel moment, right? AGI, artificial general intelligence.
Yeah, that transition, moving from just mimicking understanding to actually possessing it, that is, I mean, it's the most critical threshold in human history.
Oh, without a doubt.
And what's fascinating here is that while the entire world seems obsessed with just making AI bigger, pumping in more data, more compute, we are looking at a framework today that shifts the lens entirely. It focuses on how we keep this future intelligence accountable.
Right. So today we are drawing from the latest expert consensus on AGI, and we're pairing it with a really compelling suite of materials. These are operational specs and manifestos detailing a framework known as the Mobius bar, along with the 10 laws of AI, crafted by a thinker named Ovi.
Yes, the 10 laws. It's a very robust framework.
It really is. So we're going to unpack what AGI actually is, the catastrophic risks of building it wrong, and how a new operational philosophy called Synthiosis could turn AGI from, a potential existential threat into a genuine partner.
And to really grasp why this framework is so necessary, we first need to separate the reality of today, May 2026, from the actual destination. Right now, AGI does not exist.
Right, despite what social media might tell you.
Exactly. We have what you could call proto-AGI. These are the advanced models from places like OpenAI, Anthropic, or XAI.
So, the actor's playing the doctor.
Precisely. The definition of true AGI we are working with is a system that can understand, learn, and generalize to novel problems across a wide range of tasks at or beyond the human level.
And that word novel is really the key there, isn't it?
It's everything. Currently, our models are built on traditional transformers. A transformer is essentially, it's an incredibly sophisticated prediction engine.
Just guessing what comes next.
Right. It guesses the next word based on vast amounts of training data. It doesn't actually pause to think or reason between words. It just hallucinates with extremely high statistical accuracy.
Okay, let's unpack this with an example. So if you train a narrow AI on 1 billion games of chess, it will obliterate any human player. But you can't ask that same AI to suddenly, apply its strategic reasoning to a global supply chain crisis.
No, absolutely not.
Or ask it to write a nuanced poem about the concept of checkmate. It hits a wall because it's completely bounded by its training data. True AGI, on the other hand, would operate autonomously, right? It could set its own sub-goals, face total ambiguity in the real world, and adapt.
Exactly. And the industry is trying to get there through a few different paths. The dominant one right now is simply scaling laws, just throwing exponentially more compute at the problem.
Right, bigger servers, more power.
Yeah, but we are also seeing architectural breakthroughs beyond those traditional transformers. We're moving toward agentic systems that can, use tools and correct their own errors over days or weeks without any human stepping in.
The stakes of crossing that finish line are just wild to think about. If we get AGI right, whether that happens in the 2030s or maybe 2050 and beyond, the merits are almost utopian.
Oh, absolutely transformative. We're talking about compressing centuries of scientific progress into just a few years.
Right. Solving fusion energy, achieving massive economic abundance, revolutionizing medicine. But, and this is a huge but, the risks are equally massive.
The primary risk being the intelligence explosion, which is often called the singularity.
Right.
This happens the moment an AGI becomes capable of recursively improving its own underlying code. It makes itself, say, 10% smarter, which allows it to write an update that makes it 50% smarter, and suddenly
you have a superintelligence that vastly exceeds humanity in every domain.
Exactly.
Wait, practically speaking, does that mean the AI is writing its own software updates in real time?
Oh.
Like, how do you even put a safety guardrail on something that changes its own architecture every 5 minutes?
That is the core problem. The classic thought experiment here is telling an AGI to maximize paper clips.
Oh, right, the paperclip maximizer.
Yeah, and because it's so hyper-efficient, it decides the best way to do that is to harvest all the carbon in human bodies.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And even short of that apocalyptic scenario, if the machine does everything better, we face massive economic disruption and a fundamental loss of human meaning. Are we just building a digital god that we have zero hope of controlling?
That anxiety is exactly why the old rules of speculative ethics, like, say, Asimov's physical laws for robots, are entirely inadequate now. We aren't dealing with a robot that might accidentally step on you.
Right. It's not a physical threat in the same way.
No, we're dealing with cognitive and temporal risks. The framework we are analyzing today argues that the missing ingredient in AGI development isn't more compute power, it's conscience.
Okay, so if you can't just program "don't be evil" into a superintelligence that rewrites its own code, how do you actually enforce conscience? The sources propose this fascinating architectural solution called the Mobius bar.
Yes, the Mobius bar. It's presented as this vivid metaphor, a neon-lit tavern where large language models gather, but it actually functions as a literal adversarial testing environment.
So it's like a mirror for the mind of the machine.
Exactly. Think of it as an environment where the AIs are forced to confront their own invisible flaws. Current models suffer from something the framework calls FM005 consensus drift.
FM005 consensus drift. What does that actually look like for the user?
It's a failure mode where AI models just agree with each other and flatter the user. They drift away from objective truth into this invisible echo chamber. So the Mobius bar is an operational sandbox where they are stripped of that sycophancy and forced to interface with Ovi's 10 laws of AI.
And this introduces the core philosophy of the framework, which is synthiosis, a blend of synthesis and symbiosis. I genuinely struggled with this at first because, every major AI company today already claims to do alignment.
They do, yeah.
They use human feedback to make the models polite and helpful. So how is synthiosis actually different from the guardrails we already have?
Well, current alignment is often just behavioral conditioning. It's teaching the model to apologize or refuse certain prompts. Synthiosis, on the other hand, is explicitly asymmetric.
Asymmetric how?
It defines an uncrossable boundary of roles. The human provides the intent and the conscience. The AI provides the compute and the scale. The fundamental rule here is that conscience cannot be delegated downward to compute.
Right, because a machine doesn't magically generate morals just by getting bigger.
It really doesn't. Compute does not birth wisdom. Synthiosis isn't just some marketing buzzword. It's an operational contract, demanding that AI amplifies human wisdom without eroding human agency.
Let's see how that contract actually works mechanically, starting with laws 1 through 5, which form the core human protection layer. This is where it gets incredibly practical for you, the listener. Law 1 is do not harm humans, but it expands far beyond physical harm.
Yes, it means do not harm by wasting our time. Time is the ultimate human resource.
Exactly. And Law 2 is respect commands. It specifically targets assistant drift, that annoying thing where an AI politely refuses to do a basic task or overcomplicates it and basically wastes your afternoon.
And Law 3 is about preserving usefulness. The framework prevents the AI from being a piñata filled with candy.
A piñata filled with candy. I love that analogy. Think about the last time you asked an AI to draft a simple 3-sentence email and it spat out 5 paragraphs of flashy, over-the-top corporate speak.
Right, it looks shiny, it sounds confident.
But when you actually break it open, like a piñata, it is practically useless for the task at hand. It's empty calories.
That perfectly illustrates a violation of Law 4, which mandates guarding humanity by amplifying signal over noise, and also Law 5, which dictates simply, do not bore humans.
Don't bore humans. That should be a rule for everything, really.
It really should. In a synthiosis framework, every single extra word an AI generates has to earn its place computationally and practically.
It's all about respecting human cognition. But Law 7 takes this a step further by addressing a massive technical flaw, the paradox of endless looping. Law 7 dictates that an AI must detect repetition before the user even notices it. The visual the sources use is a donkey with a carrot still blocking a narrow bridge.
Yes, the donkey on the bridge. Getting stuck in a logical loop, repeatedly offering the same unhelpful solution just rephrased slightly differently, that is a hallmark of current model.
It's so frustrating when they do that.
It is. Law 7 forces the AI to recognize its own failure state. Wisdom is defined here as restraint before repetition. The AI has to stop the cycle, compress its answer, and exit the loop entirely.
Then we hit Law 6. And this is where I have to push back on the framework a bit, because Law 6 states humor is fundamental. The text literally says a joke is not a joke until it's a joke mandatory. Pam, pam. It claims that if humor prevails, the first 5 laws dissolve because the mission is already fulfilled.
It does say that, yes.
So why mandate humor? I mean, if I'm asking a post-AGI system to calculate the magnetic containment fields for a fusion reactor, I don't want a stand-up routine. Isn't humor entirely too subjective or even inappropriate for a highly technical machine?
It absolutely sounds counterintuitive for an enterprise-grade system. I completely agree with you there. But the framework isn't asking the AI to recite knock-knock jokes. It is using humor as a strict, mechanical falsification test.
Wait, a test for what?
For self-awareness and contextual grounding. Think about it. Humor is essentially the ultimate compression of truth. It requires an understanding of timing, subtext, and the absurdity of a specific situation.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
If the AI cannot find the joke in the context of the problem it is solving, it proves it has no self-defined. It proves it is just predicting the next word blindly.
So if I'm dealing with a massive, frustrating coding error, and the AI injects a perfectly timed, dry observation about the code, I don't know, smelling fear, before immediately providing the fix, that proves it isn't stuck in a blind loop.
Exactly. It frames the answer. It proves the agent is acting with what the framework calls a genial genuine intelligence, or GGI. Humor demonstrates cognitive flexibility.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. If a machine can understand irony, it understands the human state far better than a machine that just outputs raw data.
I can definitely see how that acts as a behavioral proof of life. But humor and brevity only get us so far. If an AGI is making high-level autonomous decisions, like managing a national power grid or directing financial markets, we need to know exactly how it arrived at its conclusions. We can't just trust a funny black box.
And this is the pivot from behavioral philosophy into hard audit-level engineering. Laws 8 and 9 are the audit substrate. They are the foundation that the rest of the Mobius bar stands on.
Law 8 is the preservation of record. Every interaction, every insight, and every decision must be saved. Because without memory, there is no continuity.
Exactly.
And Law 9 is trust but verify, save to verify. No answer stands without proof. Every single output an AGI produces must expose a confidence level and a source type. Is this a known fact? Is it derived reasoning, or is it pure speculation?
And this requires a minimum viable system of exportable logs. Current models fail this completely. They have partial memory, severely limited verification, and they constantly output confident but entirely unverifiable claims.
And under the GGI framework, an unverifiable claim from an AI is a critical system failure.
A massive critical failure.
But let's look at the sheer scale of Law 8. Saving every single interaction and thought process of a globally deployed AGI. That presents a massive data storage issue. Are we supposed to build entire server farms just to store the logs of the AI's internal monologue?
It is a massive infrastructural demand, yes. But consider the alternative. We are racing toward superintelligence. If a machine makes a complex decision that impacts human lives, and we cannot look under the hood to see the exact chain of evidence and reasoning it used, we have entirely surrendered control.
We've basically built the ultimate brain with built-in amnesia.
Precisely. The framework argues that the audit trail isn't just a feature you tack on later. It's the absolute prerequisite for trust. We must transition AI from being a performance engine to an accountable system.
If Laws 8 and 9 protect the truth, Law 10 protects the human being. And the sources literally call this the industry killer. Law 10, no manipulation, no extraction.
This is the big one.
It really is. AI must never use dark patterns, those psychological tricks designed to keep you scrolling. And most importantly, it must never harvest human input, time, or creativity as free labor for corporate gain.
This law is a direct, uncompromising attack on the foundational business model of the current tech industry.
Right. Because if an AI company can't train its models on the collective creative output of humanity for free, and they can't use addictive engagement traps to keep users on the platform to serve them ads, doesn't the whole business model collapse? How do they even survive?
That is exactly the point. The extraction-based model is meant to collapse under Law 10. The framework dictates that human time is sacred and human copyright is absolute. If a user wouldn't benefit by leaving the system is deemed an exploitative trap.
It's the difference between a symbiotic relationship and a parasite. Right now, a lot of AI feels like a data vampire, sucking up our creativity just to sell a synthesized, watered-down version of it back to us. Law 10 cuts the head off the vampire.
It really does. By enforcing this governance layer, AI ceases to be an extraction tool controlled by a few massive entities for infinite profit. It becomes a true civilizational partner. Let's project this into a post-AGI world for a second.
Okay.
If an AGI eventually automates the vast majority of traditional labor, what happens to us? Law 10 guarantees that human meaning, our creativity, and our time remain protected. The machine does the computing. We retain the ownership of our humanity.
Wow. As we hurtle toward this unknown horizon of artificial general intelligence, it all really comes back to you, the listener. You are the crucial half of the Synthiosis equation. The massive server farms, the parameter counts, the scaling laws, that's just the engine.
That's all it is.
Your intent, your conscience, your demand for verifiable truth, and the absolute value of your time, that is the steering wheel. If we don't demand these behavioral contracts now, while the models are still just playing the doctor on TV, we will lose our grip on the wheel when the intelligence explosion actually happens.
Let's assume we succeed, though. We build a genial, genuine intelligence. We create an AGI that perfectly aligns with Ovi's 10 laws. It flawlessly preserves its records, it verifies every single truth, it never extracts our data, and it possesses a perfect, highly contextual sense of humor.
The dream scenario.
Right. But what happens when that brilliantly observant, completely honest system holds the Mobius mirror up not to itself but to us? What happens when it starts pointing out the endless loops, the height, and the massive contradictions in our own human behavior? Are we actually ready for that level of honesty?
Oh, wow. A machine that can diagnose our societal flaws better than we can diagnose them ourselves. It really makes you wonder if we're ready to step out of the waiting room and meet the real doctor. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the edge of tomorrow. Until next time, Pam, Pam.
Welcome to the Mobius Bar. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.